Hey everyone, we are here with a 2019 Honda Civic, and this is the base model. So we have the 2.0 liter 4-cylinder engine, and it outputs 158 horsepower, 138 pound-feet of torque. And what's interesting about that is my 2011 Kia Forte, which at the time had the class-leading horsepower of 156 horsepower, and that was back in 2011. So that's an interesting thing, that this particular car with the 2.0 still has around that horsepower. So still not very powerful at all, which is frankly disappointing. And honestly, we've been here in Utah, and this is a rental car, and we've been driving this around for the last 4 or 5 days, and we'll be driving it for the next couple of days as well. So I think in terms of numbers, it gets pretty decent numbers. It gets 30 miles per gallon in the city and 38 on the highway. So in this particular gas tank, we've been 38 miles per gallon. So can claim that, yes, you can hit those numbers. And at one point I was at 41, 42-ish. So yeah, you can hyper mileage this for sure. And this car that we're driving in has 75,000 miles on it. So in the last 3 years, it's been utilized pretty well. I'd say in terms of overall comfort, it's pretty good. I'd say NVH is a little bit loud on the highway, but to be expected in an economy car. Oh, so gas tank, we were talking about gas. 12.4 gallon tank, so pretty small tank, but it can get you, around 300 to 400 miles of range. So that's pretty cool. And I guess people don't really talk about that because you can fill up at a gas tank and not have any issues with range. So let's talk about performance. Let's talk about the comfort and suspension and what have you. We've been driving this in Utah, like I mentioned before. We've been driving it off-road, we've been driving it in city, and we've been driving it on the highways. So we can give you all the impressions of how that is. And I'd say overall it's pretty good. I haven't really had too many things to complain about in terms of the stock suspension with 75,000 miles on it. Creaks and rattles are to a minimal. There is some of it, but I mean, for a car with 75,000 miles on it, I think you can expect that. Overall interior impressions, it's fine. There's a lot of glossy stuff in here, some fake carbon fiber. There's some metal or like metallic sort of silver things on the air vents, which quite frankly really annoy me. I just don't like shiny stuff that sun can shine off of and end up reflecting and blinding me. So that's always my complaint, is that, if you have anything in a car, just have a matte finish of some sort, because it just ends up being shiny and something that the sun can shine off of. So with that said, interior space, the seats are really comfortable. Any thoughts on the seats, Caroline? Are they comfortable?
I like them better than the last car we had when we went on vacation.
Yeah. The last car, we were in a Toyota 86, and those seats were pretty low, and it's tough to get into the car. I didn't mind the seats, but actually these seats are fairly similar to it.
This car's a lot easier to get into, I guess, is what I'll say.
Yes, this car is much easier to get into.
When you're wearing giant hiking boots and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Overall visibility is really good, but interior, I'd say the only thing that's weird is the trunk. The trunk doesn't really have that much space in it, which is interesting because they did something weird with it, which will show you what that looks like. But yeah, it's not as large of a trunk, and it's kind of awkward to fit things into it. But seat comfort, overall interior, the materials, they feel like what they would feel like in a economy car, but everything feels pretty solid. I don't feel anything that I don't particularly like. you can move the armrest a little bit further up, but it's similar to the BRZ or the FRS, where it's not like it is higher. It's kind of just like there. And it's kind of tough, but there is some leather on top of it. Steering wheel, I can't really tell you. There's a steering wheel cover on this, so I'm not able to show you that. The guy probably has that because he rents the car out on Turo. So can't blame him for that. The lighting in the interior also, this is an all LED screen, so it is nice to look at and it's pretty easy to scroll through things. There's a lot of buttons on the steering wheel, and I don't always, like, I had to take a few seconds to actually learn what everything is. There seems to be some voice activation, which I'm not even going to touch. They do have lane depart assist, and that has been not really good. Tested it out on the highway. It didn't really keep me in the lane. It kept me in there for a bit, and then it would just warn me when I was leaving it. So definitely can't really depend on that to like keep you in the lane. If you have that on also and you're steering at the same time, there is some kind of ghosty input where it's just like keeping you in the lane. So it does do a decent job, but I just wouldn't trust it to, like, you know, it's no like autonomous driving to any degree. And then it does have radar cruise, so it'll keep you a certain amount of cars behind a specific car. So that's something that's really nice if you're driving in traffic a lot and, you know, just want to set it and not worry about pressing the pedal or the accelerator, or the brake pedal and the accelerator. So that's also nice. Now, the infotainment, let's move over to that and the controls. Everything is very standard to what a typical car has. There's a button for the fan, there's temperature, and it has the auto climate control, which is nice to have. It does have a touchscreen, and it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is nice to have. It's a little bit finicky here and there. I don't really like in terms of car infotainment, I'd say Tesla is probably like a step above everybody. I haven't really used some of like the other products like Rivian or the Lucid navigation, so don't know what those are particularly like, but Tesla has been one of the most seamless ones, and with Google Maps and Android Auto, using that is pretty seamless on this. I just don't particularly like having to use my phone all the time, so I end up possibly running out of battery on my phone, or it overheats, different things like that. But that is sort of standard across the board after, like, I think 2018. So that is nice to have. People have raved about having the volume button or a volume knob back, and that's been something that everybody has been talking about. And honestly, I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't really see why journalists complain about that, because you have the volume button on your steering wheel, which all cars have now. So if you have a car that's built in the last 10 years, you probably have volume buttons on your steering wheel. So for people to complain about not having a knob on the infotainment is kind of annoying to me, and kind of played out. Like, do you not use it on your steering wheel? I mean, it's literally on your hand right now. You don't even have to look at the screen. So with that said, yeah, stereo seems okay. Haven't really blasted that. I think it's just been on in the background, and that's been fine. So no complaints there really. And yeah, overall screen changes with light and dark, so that's pretty easy. Overall impressions of the interior are pretty good. Nothing really terrible to say about it. For the price, I think it's, you know, worth it, and, you know, you get pretty decent amounts of comfort in an economy car sub $20,000. But let's talk about the exterior. So the exterior is a little bit interesting to me. I think I really like the blue, and it also has an accent of the blue on the speakers, so that's a nice touch. I don't particularly care that it has the blue, but I've heard some comments on my Focus ST when I was driving people around. They liked the blue accents on the seats. There aren't any blue accents on these seats, but yeah, on the speaker and on some of the on the start engine, on some of the what you call this, like center console gear shift area. They have, yeah, some nice blue accents that match the color of the car. So I like the blue color of the car. The overall, like, it's boy race-ish E. So, you know, the Civic Type R really brought out that in this particular model of the car. But it doesn't look lame. I mean, but the problem ends up being is that a lot of cars are doing the styling like this, so it doesn't really stand out per se. But again, if you're driving a Corolla or a Camry or an Accord or a Civic, you're not really going to stand out unless you get a Type R or, you know, the hot version of that. So yeah, I mean, it has nice curves. If I were to look at this and not compare it in the segment, I'd say it looks nice, but you know, because there are so many other cars that have similar body shapes, it doesn't really stand out too much to me. Yeah, let's move on to the performance aspect of it. So this actually surprised me. I haven't actually driven a Civic since I drove my friend's Civic Si, the manual version. I think that was a 2007. So yeah, this thing handles pretty well. We've been driving it in the canyons, and it handles body roll really well, surprisingly well. The curb weight is pretty low. It weighs about 2,700, 2,800 curb weight dry. So probably roughly around, let's say 2,800 to 2,900 pounds when it's wet. So it's, you know, pretty nice and darty. You know, it doesn't really handle like a sports car per se, but you know, it does handle fairly well. So that's something that I really have enjoyed out of this compared to, let's say, that Hyundai Sonata that we were driving in Colorado with Pikes Peak. That thing was just everywhere. But this drives definitely better. It's no sports car, like I said before, but it still handles pretty well. Now, the thing that sucks is, and maybe my Tesla Model 3 has spoiled me with acceleration, but with 158 horsepower and 133 pounds of torque, it just doesn't get up and go. Like, I have to floor it for it to do anything. Like, if we're going up a slight uphill, I'm flooring it and we're basically maintaining speed and going a little bit faster. So I'd say, you know, definitely spend a little bit extra money for the extra 22 horsepower, or even upgrade to this Civic Si. I understand that that is more of a sports car, and you're definitely going to have to pay a premium for that. But in terms of acceleration, this thing is a dog. So it also is paired with a CVT transmission. So it has a sport gear in this, and then it has paddle shifters. It has paddle shifters. Why do you, Honda, like, why are you putting paddle shifters on this thing? Like, that's insanity. Like, that's a waste of your money to put that on there. I don't know if your steering wheels all come with paddle shifters and that's why you're reusing it, but that's, yeah, it doesn't need paddle shifters. But yeah, overall, I'd say it's a really good value for the car. I just can't say enough about like the overall performance. Acceleration is just slow, and you know, when it's slow like that, it sort of hinders like the performance. It almost like drives like a Miata sort of thing, where you're just using, you know, your pedal and maintaining speed throughout turns and different things like that. But other than that, yeah, I'd say a good value for the car. Maybe string for the 1.4 liter turbo, or maybe you know, a Hyundai. You can get the Elantra N, and then you can also get those in automatic as well, or a Golf. You can get a GTI as well. I think I can probably keep up with some of the faster cars when driving this, but yeah, I think you can definitely do a lot worse for the money. But I think if you're looking in the $20,000 range, you can start looking at some of the faster cars. You know, you can probably buy an older GTI. You can probably buy a Veloster N, and those also come with a DCT transmission, so you can get something like that. And I think you would have a lot more fun. So if you have to buy a Honda Civic and you have to buy the base model, it's not a bad car to go with, but I would say there are some better options if you want some more driver engagement and some better handling. I haven't had an issue with the brakes, haven't had to emergency stop, but we did off-road this thing a bit, and it handled it. It started jostling around. I don't really think we have the tires for that, but yeah, it's been a good time and overall good experience, and I can't complain, especially when you talk about fuel economy too. So if you look at the flip side of the performance, it is a very fuel efficient car. With that said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and yeah, we will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.